music industry and the entertainment industry is completely controlled from cradle to grave. And it is a giant lever tool in the toolbox of the controllers because they fully understand how music and Hollywood can influence, how it can social engineer, how it can condition people to change their values and their morals and their ethics and lifestyles. So, and it is very difficult for people to get their heads wrapped around it. So when you talk about this, or when I talk about it, or others who are talking about the entertainment and music industry, we catch a lot of flack and,
Oh, yeah.
quite honestly, a lot of hatred because people have put these bands, these artists, these celebrities up on a pedestal and they worship them as gods. We're talking about the A-list artists, bands, performers, celebrities, because they pave the way for others to follow. And the way I've described it is they create a sandbox. So the social engineers, Tavistock and so on, they create a sandbox, and that particular sandbox is a genre of music. Let's just say the British Invasion. I will pick that one. It's an easy one to pick on. And so you have these A-list bands that enter into that sandbox, and then what happens is they create a template that other bands emulate. They copy. So they copy the style of the music. They copy the essence and the spirit and the direction of the lyrics. They emulate the presentation of the material, how they dress, how the album covers are designed, the occult symbolism and all that stuff. So I have to explain the same thing. I'm not talking about every band. We're talking about the ones that were tapped to lead the parade. The social engineering that takes place has conditioned people to react from an emotional perspective. They reduce the critical thinking faculties of an adult down to that of almost a child. And so when people are confronted with information that cuts across the grain, that doesn't jibe with what it is that they believe, they react that way. But look, the truth is the truth. It's not an easy path because there is a lot of resistance. There are a lot of people that don't like your message. There is a lot of suppression of the information that you're putting out. The occult is so blatantly displayed now. It's always been out there, but now it's wide open. It mystifies me how so many people cannot see it or don't want to see it, or if they're in the conspiracy research or alternative research business, why they won't go down that path. Because as you mentioned, it's patterns. It's pattern recognition. It really comes down to that. I mean, I've been talking about this for a long time. You know, there's two realities that have unfolded here. We have a reality where there are people that have awakened and see this for what it really is. And I'm talking about everything, the music industry, entertainment, politics, the media, the military, everything. And then you've got that other reality, which unfortunately still has the majority that have bought into this illusion. The real movers and shakers are not the people in front of the curtain. The people that are making things happen are behind the curtain. And it's the same thing in the music and entertainment industry. It's like even the Monterey Pop Festival, which I'm sure you're very aware of, the whole thing there with the CIA introducing LSD, acid, and then local law enforcement was told to stand down. And this was an experiment to see how LSD would affect the people that attended the Monterey Pop Festival. The fact that everything is controlled, and that's another thing that a lot of people have a lot of difficulty getting their arms wrapped around. What do you mean everything's controlled? Everything's a conspiracy? Everything that means anything is a conspiracy. It's being controlled. Your reality is controlled. You live in an illusion. It's hard for people to get their heads wrapped around because ever since they were born, they were born into this. So you think this is normal. You think that this is the way the world is. But the world could be very different if we didn't have people pulling strings above us. And once you start to dig in, you start to find and discover and come across information, and that leads you down a different path. So you can either get really uncomfortable with it and just leave it there and say, okay, I'm not going to look at this anymore because I don't want to believe this stuff. But there's something inside some of us that have something wired inside of us that tells us, don't stop, keep going.